Welcome to Flip the Script, where inspiration meets innovation. Today, we're joined by Tanish Morey, a leader who shaped two diverse industries, first building IHCL's homestay brand Arma, and now driving innovation at Barberos in the salon space. From transforming travel to redefining men's grooming, Tanish's journey is all about embracing change and thinking big. So now let's dive into his story.
So welcome, Tanish. So I got to know that you did your hotel management from IHCL Aurangabad, and now you are a general manager at Barberos, a new and upcoming men's salon based out of Bangalore, and you've also worked with a homestay brand called Arma with IHCL. So I would like to know your pivotal moments in your journey, which eventually, because of which eventually landed up here.
Hi, good evening. Thanks, Ramya. Thanks, Nandan, for having me here. Yeah, it has been a great journey indeed. If you had asked me 10 years ago whether this would be the path I took, um, I would be lying if I said I knew it. But yes, it has been a very, very exciting journey. I think there's been a lot of milestones, or now that I look back at it, of course, at the moment, one wouldn't know. But yeah, I think growing up, I was born in Bangalore, never really lived in the city. My parents relocated to the Gulf very early. So the initial part of schooling was in the Gulf, and by the time I was in class five, interesting story was that that particular year in class five, a lot of my classmates were going to boarding school in India, and I was in Dubai. And I came back home one day and I told my mom, I said, okay, you know what? I want to go to boarding school. And it's still a big scar for my mom because she thought I wanted to leave her and leave home, right? But that was not the reason. I was just trying to go get away because everyone else was doing it and I wanted to do it too. So yeah, I mean, boarding school happened, and I think when I look back today, I think that was one of the best decisions I took. It made me very, very independent. There was a lot of extracurricular, co-curricular activities. It shapes you as a person. I participated in a lot of sport, a lot of debates, which is where I realized that um, I was decent at oration, at orating. So that was something that I learned. At a very young age, I was also exposed to the world of aviation, considering my grandfather was in the Air Force. And I think that sort of fostered a passion with aircrafts and everything aviation. So for the longest time, I wanted to fly. And that passion continued. I went into finished class 10, did decently well, and did in class 11, took myself through that struggle of doing science, right? Now, in retrospect, I think back, I'm like, why? But yeah, I did it because back then I wanted to fly. But my grandfather was someone that pushed me and said that he saw it in me and said that I think you are a people's person, and I think that you enjoy talking to people. And flying is not as glamorous as you think it is because he says, for a long span you're just sitting in the cockpit doing nothing, right? And he felt like it won't be a great fit for me, even though it was passion. And we went to a foundation. I did a psychometric test. This is very early on, right? And this is when I was in class 10. And which is when I realized that after the counseling session, we realized that I was indeed a people's person. I enjoyed interacting with people, and the counselor there made a very important, I mean, a statement that I probably won't forget, where she said that flying is your passion, and sometimes when you make passion your work, chances are that you'd burn out and you'd lose that passion, right? So if you feel like this is passion, continue to do it, but continue to do it as a hobby where you enjoy it. You're doing it when you have to do it instead of making it a job and making it something where you earn money out of it. It's your bread and butter. So
Now,
that was a
do you,
very, I mean, yeah.
do you think like 10 years from now you agree with that statement?
Um, I do because if I indeed did make it to becoming a pilot, and you actually look at a holistic picture of what a pilot's life is today, it's not as glamorous as people make it sound, right? Every industry, for that matter, has its ups and downs, and so does flying. So I think having been through this journey 10 years down the line, I think I would have enjoyed. I enjoy the management side of things more than this. And I still remember another very controversial statement, but another instructor just before I was contemplating joining flying school. he told me being a pilot is like being a glorified taxi driver, where you dress up
Wow.
neatly, right? And because that's your job. Your job is just to fly the plane. No one wants to know your feedback on what the management side or how an airline runs, or get insights into how everything is done. Of course, it happens at a later stage, where at the fag end of your career, once you're close to
Mm,
retirement, then those avenues open up where you can get into leadership positions within airlines. But yeah, you have to spend a lot of your time just doing this. And yeah, I don't want to comment on it anymore because I haven't flown yet, so I'm not really sure whether
yeah.
what he said holds true. But yeah, it's been a fun journey. So that people's person journey, then I was like,
Mm,
okay, what's next?
mm,
Where does a people's person fit in next, right? And the next big best bet was hospitality. Also driven by the fact that my mom and dad also started off in
mm,
hospitality before they branched out. So
mm.
yeah, I guess it was just what would be second best,
Would you
and
say
that's how.
hospitality was as glamorous as people made it seem, or that also has its?
Too many controversial statements, no? But no, so it is definitely not as glamorous as people once thought it was. And I think the hospitality industry is facing its fair share of issues today.
Yep.
Mm,
And I guess when we also did get into it, I still think when I'm thinking about it now, it makes me seem we are old, man. But yeah, even when we got into it, we did it. We were doing it as a job, and we did not know any better, right?
mm,
So we thought this was the norm. No
yeah,
social life, no time for yourself, working 14, 15,
same
16
here.
hours, right? We thought it was the norm, and we did it because we didn't know that we didn't know any better. But
Mm,
yeah, I guess as you go through those struggles, and now in hindsight, it's easier for us to speak about this today. But I think it's important, and I think the hospitality industry needs to acknowledge the fact that there's a lot of talent moving out of it today because of
mm.
of the culture of these long working hours.
Yeah, that's true. Even we've heard that even schools and colleges might be facing issues in India right now because of
With the ambitions. Yeah.
with admissions
Yeah, we
and
saw
all.
staggering numbers, right? I don't know. I mean, about 60% of all seats were vacant. Right?
Yeah,
I think the ripple effect of that will be seen 3 years from now when people graduate. But yeah.
absolutely.
But the
But how
interesting
was
part,
your?
I think, but the interesting part is that up to now, you see companies having the last say when you hire people. So you have a pool of, let's say, 5,000 people that you have to hire from. IHCL hires what, about 100 people across different programs. So will other companies. But now when the numbers are smaller, I guess the onus is now on the company, because suddenly the candidates coming in have the choice,
Yeah,
right? And I think that would put pressure on the.
So
that's a
transitioning
different dynamic.
from having a passion to flying and then being a hotelier, I would love to know your journey as a hotelier. Did you join IHCL directly at Arma? How was the networking experience at IHCL? And please tell us more about Arma, because it's a business that's very new for a five-star hotel, for a luxury hotel to start with. So I would love to know your experience handling Arma and being a part of the team.
So the journey with IHCL was very interesting. I went to the Institute of Hotel Management in Aurangabad,
Mm,
um, again affiliated with the Indian Hotels Company Limited. So finished my education there, and sort of moved into management training immediately after that with IHCL. And through management training, of course, there you go through the process of training, understand the company a little better, go through different departments, and post that, I think the day we finished management training, COVID hit, right? So we were all sent home. We were
yeah.
sitting at home doing very little. And once I got the call back, the move into Arma per se was not, now looking back in hindsight, I mean, was not a move that I could say was a strategic one or was something that I had planned to do. It was something that sort of just happened. And when I came back to India after the first lockdown had sort of
Mm,
ended, I was offered multiple positions in hotels where I could have joined. I was in front office. So you join as a duty manager typically after you finish the program. And I did not particularly like the locations that I was being sent to. So
mm,
I was fortunate enough to have a mentor above me who understood this and
mm,
who understood what I wanted to do as well. So, which is when this opportunity came about, and I
mm,
was sent to Bangalore to give an interview.
mm.
Again, funny story is I was actually sent to Bangalore to give an interview for a role in food and beverage.
Okay.
Right? And
Mm,
after the interview is when they realized that, okay, I think he would be a better fit for Arma. and not food and beverage, right? And when I heard, and that was the first time I was hearing about the brand and what they were doing. And when I heard about it, and I remember during the brief, they spoke about it's a new brand. We're starting from scratch. A lot of processes needed to be set. And this excited me because, right through my college days and even during internship, processes was something that I was exposed to a lot, which I think I was fortunate. I was fortunate enough to get that opportunity. And I think so. That's how the journey with Arma started, really.
It's very
That's how.
interesting that people identified that this was your strong suit. Did you know this was your strong suit and something that you liked doing at that time, or did things just happen and mentors identified that this is something that you'd be good at and you got like pushed into it?
So in the initial stages of how I got exposed to it was by chance. You go through where during your on-the-job training, or OJT as they call it in hotel lingo. We went through this phase in Vivanta, Aurangabad, and as luck would have it, at the time I was doing my exposure in front office, we were changing operating systems at across
Hmm.
IHCL, and Aurangabad was one of the pilot hotels because it was a training hotel, etc. So while I was in front office, the team from that particular management system was in the hotel designing floor plans and
Hmm.
designing processes around how a check-in has to be done or how the system works. So that's how I first got exposed to this, and it really interested me. I mean, it's something
Hmm.
that fell onto my plate quite by accident, but I felt like I started doing that, and then from there on, once I told my mentor when I got into management training that this is what I enjoy doing, I think she identified it, and every
Hmm.
role since then has been around this. So yeah, very fortunate to have had someone who listened to me and also saw it.
Yeah,
And yeah, I guess that's how this came about.
that's nice. Okay. And like what is like do you want to just describe what Arma is to the audience? Like what do they do? We know like IHCL is a big brand of hotels, but what is Arma at its core?
And also, just to add to Ramya's question, the biggest challenge would be running that Arma business without a playbook. Unlike hotels, it was something you were venturing into for the very first time. So the experience about running that show and being a part of it.
So Arma, to start off what Arma was. So Arma was IHCL's luxury homestay brand. It was a brand that was launched just before the pandemic hit. And the story behind how Arma was launched is actually fairly simple. The Tata Group had a lot of land, and because it's a heritage company, a lot of different companies own a lot of real estate across the country.
Mm.
Most of these in a lot of exotic places and untouched destinations, so to speak. And they had a lot of guest houses in each of these locations. So that was actually the story of how Arma first came about, because the chairman of the Tata Group identified this and said, why don't you monetize these properties and give it to a hospitality operator within the group? We have a hospitality partner, so why don't we do that? And
That's
that
good
was really
asset
the birth of,
management.
yeah, so that was really the birth of how Arma really started. And yeah, it has been a great journey. Um, Coming to the playbook, I don't, I was a very small part when I joined, but the team was very small. And we were, we were a team of maybe 6 to 7 people when we initially started. When it was first conceptualized, I'm sure the team was a little smaller, but when I joined, the team was about 6 to 7 people.
Mm.
And the exposure was great because even though we were operating with no real playbook, but I guess when you're coming from an ecosystem of hospitality, it really helps. The experience really helps.
Yeah.
And having these minds just sitting in a room, having these experienced minds talk, right, just gives you so much. It teaches you so much. It teaches you how people approach situations. Even when there was no playbook, you have to create one. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not a problem, create it. There was a lot of trial and error that happened, and I think that was the first time we also were exposed to understanding that strategies can be evolving.
Mm.
You start off with one. At that point in your limited knowledge of the industry, you start off with what you think you know, and pivot down the line if you feel like you need to change, right? So I think we had experts in the hospitality space, which really helped us do it. And I think the model was conceptualized also around our existing hotels, right? So Arma
Right.
is also a hub and spoke model. So hub and
Yeah.
spoke is basically where you again, I think it was an aviation
Yeah.
had an aviation connect there, right? So you see how this just
This
follows
all,
me.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Uh,
yeah, so the hub and spoke model really worked well for them because they really relied on these properties or these bungalows in offbeat locations, relying on the closest IHCL hotel, and that's really
hmm.
how
You,
how Arma operates.
You just
yeah.
mentioned about it's important to pivot at key moments in life, and now that we see your journey, now you've pivoted into a larger role of being a general manager at
Mm.
Barberos, which is a upcoming men's salon. What would you like to say about that experience and how your experience from the past is helping you right now to curate different experiences for your new customers or creating a new client base?
So the reason why,
One second. Before we start,
sure,
just tell the audience what Barberos is, what you guys do, and your USP.
sure. So Barbaros is a gentleman's salon and spa. We started operations in 2022, and it was basically conceptualized because the group companies that I'm working for at the moment also have a similar brand called Nailbox, which is like the name suggests around nails, and
Yeah.
typically audiences is are women. While we were doing that, we also realized that there is no space exclusively for men, right? You
Mm.
have a lot of unisex salons today, but there was no space exclusively for men, which is when Barbaros was conceptualized. And when I first heard about them and when I first was introduced to the brand and I went down to them, I understood how the way they worked. The reason that I made the switch was the journey with Arma had gone from probably when I joined them 7 to 96 when I left,
Mm.
right? So that scalability excited me. The journey was great and it happened quick.
Mm.
I think that was what I was after. And I said, I saw that this brand really has that potential to grow. And it was a brand that was conceptualized to target the mass. So it's not an ultra premium brand, but at the
Mm.
same time, we're trying to offer the best service at a very affordable price,
Agreed.
right?
Right.
So if we want, especially services like this, you need to target the mass. Otherwise, you're
Mm.
entering a niche in an already small market, which
Difficult.
is not the most ideal.
But
So
yeah, how did your like experience, like you've worked so much on experiences, did that play into like designing these like customer journeys and stuff in Barberos?
it definitely did because the way we differentiate ourselves today is a lot of people feel that service and hospitality are the same,
Mm.
but I don't think they are. I think service is something that you get in any customer facing
Mm.
outlet you go to, right? That is service. You're coming inside the store and someone's offered you something. That is service. I feel like hospitality is an art because the design element behind hospitality is designed around ensuring that you bring the person back.
Yeah.
Right now, how can we do this in a more cost efficient way? Because of course, if you're targeting the masses, your revenues are not extremely high.
Yeah.
So you need to do this in a more efficient way, which is where again my experience with processes and setting up processes and efficiencies and designing experiences for that matter. So in Arma, you go into the depth. In Barbaros, you just need to sort of touch the surface of it.
Mm.
Do the smaller things, the finer things. Offer a beverage inside the cellar.
Yeah.
Go an extra mile. And as Nandan would know, I mean, when you go to get a haircut,
Yeah.
even at a local shop, getting that massage is something that's nice, right? So so we sort of try and inculcate these things where we do these, give a 5-minute massage after every haircut, irrespective of whether you've asked for it or not.
Definitely.
Yeah. No.
Small design
We
elements here where we try and bring people back.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Hospitality or working with like any hospitality chain teaches you to be a little extra, and that
Yeah,
really goes a long way, especially in other industries where people don't expect it.
yeah, absolutely.
And like you mentioned, both in Arma as well as Barbaros, there was a lot of like understanding the customer and then like pivoting at every stage. Like how how would you describe this process of actually understanding the customer? Did you have any ways in which you conducted these surveys, or like how did you use customer feedback basically?
You're talking about in Arma, or you're talking about
Both, both.
In both, in both. Generally, what advice would you give to people about like being able to use customer feedback effectively?
so. I mean, you are in a service industry, right? we have a saying that customers are always right, but that's a different subject altogether. If you don't really listen to what your consumer wants,
Yep.
you're never going to be able to give them what they want. And if you are so stuck on your beliefs, it's extremely important for you to have a belief system, but allow your gut to be educated with experiences. Like your gut should come from your past experiences, and those experiences should have been vast, should have been extremely on the ground, getting your hands dirty. So when you are in this situation, just follow what you feel like the consumer wants. Now, it comes with a robust system of having feedback. A lot of people neglect it. It is extremely important for you to have feedback and not just capture the moment, do something about it,
Mm-hmm.
right? As long as you're capturing it and sort of, putting it down and saying, okay, over time, this is what we've got. And I think Arma did it beautifully. I think the processes were set up in such a way where every feedback was responded to. If we felt like the feedback had some merit and we felt like something was done, because of the hub and spoke model, before the customer left, we got the hub hotel manager to go and meet the client, right? Go and meet the consumer, see what his issue was.
Yeah.
And if we felt at a corporate level, if we felt like something was wrong, then we pick up the phone and have a conversation with the client and understand where did that journey go wrong. In hospitality, you have that cycle
Yeah.
yeah, pre-arrival, arrival,
Yep.
the entire guest journey, right? Finish that guest journey. These are the basic things that a lot of people overlook once they've got it. They think that these are things that are just bookish knowledge, but I think it's extremely important to practice this, and because the consumer is looking for something, right? And Arma had to pivot themselves because we had a very different model during COVID, and the
Yeah.
model changed because we understood that the consumer coming out of COVID, his requirements are now no longer the same as when
Yeah.
COVID was there. So it's
That's
extreme. I think it's extremely important.
That's very true, and like I'm glad that you mentioned that this difference of looking through the hospitality lens, which not everybody thinks of in the first go. And so that's why we wanted to ask you questions of like, supposing there's somebody who wants to start either one homestay or multiple homestays, either as a primary source of revenue or like as an or like as a side hustle. What would be like your advice? Like you've had a lot of experiences doing this. So what would you tell? What would be like your advice to them? Like, should they do it? Should they not?
So it eventually boils down to why they're getting into it. I
Mm,
think that is very important. I think one of the most common mistakes a lot of people make while getting into it is they don't do enough research. Even though the homestay segment within the hospitality space is fairly new, traditional homestays have been there for a while. There are established companies today, so you have multiple options.
mm,
Do not go to one, explore all these options, right? You have an option where, and in my honest opinion, I feel like if you're doing this and this is going to be your bread and butter, if there are I would honestly suggest that you hold control because
mm.
you're in control of operations, you're in control of what you want to do. And I think, yeah, I mean, both of you also having a little bit of experience in the revenue space also understand that there are enough distribution channels today to help someone even if they're standalone,
Yep. That's
right?
Yeah.
OTA channels today are starting the separate funnels for homestays today. Like Make My Trip has started their own funnel on homestays. So it is not the worst thing in the world to go out on your own, right?
Mm,
Whereas similar way, if you feel like this is not a bread and butter thing for you, and it's the pressure is not really on, and you feel like you want to monetize this, you want you want someone to really look after your property and do it end to end. There are companies available for that as well. You have the likes of Arma, you have the likes of Saffron Stays, Lohono, depending on your requirements. So my advice is go through each and every one of them and pick what you want.
evaluate.
There are enough models in the market today that can be curated to suit what you need, right? So, like a percentage model cut that they have. So, there are different companies that offer different levels of service. You want to run it, you want us to be an aggregator, there's a model for that. You want us to do sales and marketing, there's a model for that. You
Right.
want the company to do everything for you, there is a model for that, right?
Right.
So, there are enough models in the market available.
Got it. And like, so yes, you've like touched upon like the business model and you really need to evaluate that. But how do you say evaluate the location and what are the things to keep in mind for actual experiences in the homestay? Like what are, like you mentioned, there's like that journey which people don't go through. What are some like really basic things that people very often overlook, newcomers to the industry especially?
Also, Tanish, just to add to what Ramya just mentioned about the location and the uh, how you will provide to your customers, I also think it's important that you highlight the importance of benchmarking your own brand against the other homestays out there, because not everybody is as luxurious as IHCL's Arma would do, or Saffron Stays or others. So it's very important to understand the benchmark in which space you really want to operate. Is it for the type A customer who don't want to pay that much but want to have a comfortable stay with their family, or is it for a type B customer who's only out there to have a sense of luxury, have a sense of being pampered?
Mm, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So see, when it comes to location, now typically the homestay market has not evolved to that extent yet, where you have a few entrants now into the market who are doing it, but the people who are typically getting into this business have existing houses,
Mm,
right? So the choosing location part sort of uh,
yes.
has not come into the fore as much as we'd like it to at the moment.
Mm,
But if you had to choose of getting into this business where you felt like you wanted to go and purchase a plot of land and then build, there are enough articles today out there that would talk to you about supply and demand, right? How popular is
mm,
this market? If it's something that you don't really know about, um, talk to a lot of people. There are enough people who will talk to you today. I think you can even reach out to Make My Trip today, and they will tell you what are the
mm.
markets that they are seeing as emerging today. And because see, like markets like I think Goa is reaching a saturation point at the
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
They have
right?
a lot of
They have a
homestays.
lot, yeah, a
Every
lot
house
of
Yeah.
is a
homestays.
homestay.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? So there are no shortage of options in Goa. But do I think like that the demand has surpassed the supply? I'm not sure. But are they at a position today where they can command whatever rates they want? I don't think so. So another place that has a lot of homestays is Maharashtra,
Mm,
and I think that these two locations, and of course the southern part of India, right? A lot of homestays. They're big on homestays,
yeah.
and everyone does it. So if you're getting into it through that model, understand the whole process first before you get into this. Speak to aggregators. Speak to people who are running homestays
Mm,
already. So speak to these companies before you get into it, because that will help you understand what your return on investment is going to be. That will help you understand which model works the best for you. How
mm,
aggressive do you want your return to be,
mm,
right?
mm.
Yeah.
The more aggressive you want that return to be, my personal opinion is hold control.
Yeah.
The more you want to let it, you're okay with organic growth, then you
Yeah.
can explore these ideas. And like Nandan was saying, it's extremely important to also benchmark your property. Another mistake that I feel like a lot of people get into this is that they assume that okay, I have a house, it's done up. Now you please take it and start running it.
Yeah.
Mm,
It does not work well. It does not work that way, right? Like any other business, there is investment put into it. There is a lot of amenities that you will have, and a lot of these OTA platforms will tell you
mm,
what these amenities are.
Yeah.
Please focus on them. 5 years
mm.
ago, 10 years ago, a swimming pool was not, let's say, for example, was not very common in a place like Lonavala.
Right.
Today, everybody has it.
Everybody has it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And you
if
have
you
that.
are a little penny wise, pound foolish, it is going to hurt you, right? And like
Absolutely.
any other business, whoever you're giving it to, whether you're giving it to an aggregator or you're running it yourself, understand that this is going to take time. Discovery
Mm,
of your property takes time. You need to give this business at least 8 months to a year, if not a little more, if, depending on the size of the market where you're in. Depending on the
mm.
size of the market, you need to give it time. Don't expect your property to go profitable from day one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
very true.
I mean, then that's a model that's too good to be true, right? We all should buy houses.
Yeah, no. That's very true. And those are some really good points. But do you see like potential in the homestay business in the next, say, 10 years in India? Like, would you, if I came and told you that I have this much money, of course, your first thing is going to be like evaluate what operator, what model you want to pursue. But do you think it makes sense? Like, should I invest in this?
See, the trend that we are seeing today, right? I mean, even though it's not related to the hospitality industry or the homestay segment, but you look at things like you look at the frenzy that just happened with Coldplay,
Hmm.
right? After COVID, a lot of people today are putting a lot of emphasis on experiences
Yeah.
Yeah.
over just going and doing the same old traditional hotel stay. Hotels are having to pivot today. We are seeing the birth of a lot of new boutique hotel brands. You're seeing the emergence of homestays today, right? That is because people are chasing these experiences today. Try and make it as local, as authentic as possible, right? The number one playbook, even when I joined Arma, was the biggest challenge was to explain to the hotels not to treat the property like a hotel, treat it like a house, right? That's the experience. That's the local experience. So I think it's extremely important for people to understand that this market is only going to grow, right?
Yeah.
People are chasing experiences. The southern part of India, very interestingly, is has a lot of homestays. There's a huge market in the north that is not tapped yet, right? You have your typical destinations, your Manali of the world, your Shimlas, and you have destinations that have already evolved. But you have so much of untapped potential in these places. You have rural Rajasthan, beautiful place. You have rural Punjab. Again, these are places that are untapped, and they're so rich in culture and their heritage that it's this is just a place that's just waiting to explode. So if you have the money and if you feel like I am bullish about the homestay segment growing. I think it's going to be extremely and this is also, mind you, this is also not, we have not reached, foreign travel into India has not yet
Yeah.
bounced back the way we'd like it to, right?
Yeah.
The moment that happens, the kind of money coming in,
Yeah.
the opportunities are endless.
That's true.
Now that we're talking about opportunities and tapping into segments that have not yet been discovered, I would like to understand two very important part of the hospitality business, so-called, which is profitability, and the upcoming or a very trending part of the sustainability of a business. So can you please highlight on these two aspects in terms of the homestay business, how profitable they are and how sustainable they are?
So, very interesting. I was actually reading an article the other day. I think it was Stay Vista, right? And you were looking at their numbers. I think they published their numbers, and their profitability was at about 2%,
Oh, wow.
right? And now this is company wide,
Yeah.
right? And now, having said that, the model, of course, you're not dealing in revenues like a hotel, right? You need to be realistic about it. Different companies are promise you different rates of return. It typically ranges between 25% to 40%. Getting to 40% as a return again is going to take you time. You
Yeah.
need to grow. You need to grow, and you need to be patient about it. If you are going to make rash decisions, and if you are not going to have a vision for where you want it to be, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to sustain,
Yeah, definitely.
right? Yeah. For example, now you want to be a little penny wise, pound foolish, where you don't want to get into and get these basics right initially with the amenities, the look and feel of your property. Another big mistake a lot of people make is the lack of marketing, the lack of pumping in money into marketing. Very, very important. How else are people going to know
No
who you
one
are?
exists.
Yeah.
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 So if you feel like you have the bandwidth to do all this, go on your own. If you feel like you don't, there are enough players in the market today that will do it for you, right?
Correct.
But my only thing is, irrespective of who you're giving it to, most of these companies are doing very well. But you need to give it time. You need to give it time, and please focus on making your property a little different. There needs to be a differentiator in your property.
Yeah.
It's not a cookie cutter hotel model where all hotels look the same, the lobbies smell the same. Break away from that model, right? We are not.
Yes.
This is a more bespoke. This is a more
Authentic.
bespoke experience, authentic experience, right?
Personalized experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And you
yeah.
would say operations is like a large part where like having control of the everyday operations is very, very important as well. That's like also quite a big takeaway that you stressed on
Yeah, again, depending on the
the
on the
model.
on the on the model that you go for. But yeah, even from a company perspective, operations is an extremely important step. I think when you're running it yourself, of course, the onus is on you.
Yeah.
When you're a company, again, depending on the models people follow, the models like a Saffron Stays or an Arma Stays and Trails follows is that because they are big companies, the money coming in,
Is
20% of the
better.
turnover is not really denting my, or is not making a substantial difference to what IHCL is making, right?
Yeah.
Which is why the only way this model will make sense is if you scale,
Right,
right?
right.
So you need to scale 250 properties. I think IHCL is talking about 500 properties. That is when this model will now start making sense,
Yeah.
right? When those percentages add up. And I think that's extremely important because as you scale, you'll also start seeing economies of scale, right? Things will start
Mm,
becoming better for you. You will start optimizing. So this is
right.
again highlighting an extremely important point that if you're going with a company, patience. They are getting there. Everyone is getting there. As soon as you scale up, it just allows you to optimize operations much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a very good point. I think with most businesses is patience and hard work and effort and not just looking for that instant hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, but thank you so much. I think this was a great conversation where we really got some good insights in if someone wanted to like start a homestay business as well as, the entire your journey with Barberos. Um, yeah, thank you so much
Yeah, yeah.
for being here today.
I'm
And
definitely looking forward to the 5 minute massage after the haircut once I'm.
yeah.
Next time you're in Bangalore, Nandan. Next time you're in Bangalore.
Definitely. I want to look.
Or actually, even maybe we coming to a city close to you.
Please
Who
come to
knows?
Bombay.
All
Thank you,
right.
guys.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
See
much.
Thank you
you.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.